We're here at EAA Air Venture 2021 in Oshkosh with Amanda Simpson, Vice President of Research and Technology for Airbus Americas. Thanks for being with us, Amanda.
Oh, my pleasure.
We'd like to talk today about cleaner technologies, as we see in the charts behind you. And let's start with the short term. In the near term, it looks like SAF is going to be the major impact. Can you talk about Airbus involvement with SAF and where you see us going?
Well, I mean, we can take a step back and really look at why sustainability is going to be so important to aviation. And not only, what are we looking at for today, but tomorrow and beyond. And what we're seeing is an increased attention and sensitivity to the environmental impact of everything we do, not just aviation. I mean, we're seeing dramatic shifts in automobiles and trucking, as well as rail and surface transportation, towards battery electrics and fuel cell vehicles, and that is indeed influencing all of society, and aviation is being pulled along with it, right? And so the problem is the development times and the production times, the life cycle in aviation is so long that it's decades. So we have to start on things as soon as possible. Like yesterday, if we're going to make an impact in the future, and whether you call it flight shaming or whatever, we don't want aviation to be the only thing that is not carbon neutral in the decades to come. So with tens of thousands of airliners today, what do? We have to figure out how to wean ourselves off of the kerosene. And so, rightly so, short term, it's going to be, and maybe even in the medium term, those sustainable aviation fuels. Those are drop-in fuels for jet, to replace Jet A, that are not kerosene-based, right? They're going to be coming from, biofuels, whether it be agricultural waste, tree trimmings. We have a plant, I think, is being built in Georgia that is alcohol to jet. I'm not sure where they're getting the alcohol from in Georgia. That's perhaps just a different story in the southeastern United States. There's a good way to use that. And I actually even heard that as automobiles are moving more and more away from gasoline, and as some of the major manufacturers have said there will not be internal combustion engines in a decade or so. There's that whole industry that was built to produce ethanol and convert that to start making jet fuel. But that sustainable aviation fuel right now, as you know, is only approved up to a 50% blend. You can have 5%, 10, 20, right up to 50%, but the rest still has to be Jet A. So the next step is going to be how to expand the utilization, the certification of that SAF to 100%, right? To move beyond the 50%. And that's, in itself a challenge from a technical standpoint, but, as you said, it's a production issue, it's a cost issue. Where's all this SAF going to come from?
We'll find out the answer, but it's probably intermediate term rather than short term.
Right. I did a seminar, a forum earlier this morning, and the question from the audience was just that: how do we get SAF? And almost every drop that is going to be produced here in the United States, and to some extent on a global basis, for the next several years, is already pre-purchased. And there's such a demand because that demand has outstripped the ability to produce it. And until that happens, the price is going to remain high, right? Whenever demand outpaces supply, basic macroeconomics, it's going to be a high price. It's not until the demand increases that we're going to get that stabilized. And there's a couple of ways. There's a bill working through Congress that would offer incentives, tax breaks to utilization of SAF that would hopefully increase demand so that our investing community would get behind the capital needed to build these projects. In Europe, they're going the other way, right? They're saying that they're going to put a tax on carbon, and they're going to set standards that you have to operate with a certain percentage of SAF, and those will increase demand, which will then drive down prices. So a lot of things in motion now to try to supplement the availability.
Sounds great. Where do we go from after SAF? What's the next step? We've seen a lot of talk about hydrogen. We've seen a lot of talk about electric propulsion. Where do you see Airbus is going, and what are the steps that the industry needs to take to get there?
Right. Well, so I mean, the issue with SAF is you're still at altitude, and whether it's in climb or cruise, you're still emitting carbon dioxide as well as a lot of other greenhouse gases. So the next step has to be, how do you eliminate those, right? So we've looked at a variety of different energy sources. Electrification is one that's getting a lot of attention. But the problem with electrification, with battery specific, is their energy density is so low. The amount of weight it would take to get sufficient electrical energy stored outstrips the size and weight of the aircraft in its totality today. And even when you project where battery technology will be in the next several decades, it just does not get there. So then we started looking at a variety of other sources. We can talk. There was ammonia and a variety of different things, and we really came down to that the best energy source is the original energy source of the universe, and that's hydrogen. Hydrogen has an energy density by weight that is 3 times that of petroleum, and orders of magnitude above what batteries were. Its drawback, and this is where the challenge is, are multiples, right? One is, even though it has higher energy density, it has a lower energy volume. So it's 3 times more energy by weight, but 1/4 the energy by volume. So how you store it, how you transport it is going to be the challenge. And that's why we're pushing liquid hydrogen, so that's about as dense as you can get the hydrogen, but it's still very large, so you're going to need different ways to store it on board an aircraft. There's certainly lots of ways today to transport it and distribute it on the ground that are in use. These have to be amplified for the aviation community. The other challenge is, again, availability. It is somewhat expensive, but there are a variety of projects funded by Department of Energy, by private investors and industry to bring that price down. The Department of Energy just announced their hydrogen Earth shot to bring the cost of hydrogen from the current about $4 per pound down to $1 per pound by the end of this decade. That's going, by changing the technology, and by Airbus, other aviation industry, as well as the general transportation community, whether for the ground, the fuel cell vehicles. California is going very, very big. Long haul trucking is now coming of age for using hydrogen. That will increase demand, which will bring down increase the availability and eventually bring down the price as well. So a lot of factors going on.
Sounds great. Notice the blended wing body is one technology as well you have in terms of improving aerodynamics.
Yeah,
what does that do for us?
Yeah, I mean, so the 3 concepts that we've put out for our zero emission aircraft, Zero E, are shown here, whether it's a turboprop, the turbofan, or the blended wing body. And certainly, if you look at the first 2, they look like a traditional aircraft today, but there's more to them than just changing the energy source. If you look, the wings are a little bit different, because now that you've moved the fuel to the back third of the fuselage, i.e. no windows there, you can now optimize the now dry wing for aerodynamics, have higher aspect ratio, thinner wings, more flexible. So lots of things that are going into that. But the blended wing body offers a different perspective on a very efficient aerodynamic shape that gives large volumes inside. And with the need for hydrogen to take up more space in either spherical or cylindrical tanks, the blended wing body offers that opportunity. So it's certainly something that we are looking at. Will our zero-E aircraft that enters service in the mid-30s look like one of these? Possibly, but not necessarily. These are really thought pieces to get people interested in thinking about what zero emission could be.
You mentioned zero-E by in the 2030s. Are you looking at 2035 or a specific date?
We're targeting 2035, for entry into service. Now you start backing that up, right? It means starting certification and test flights on an aircraft in probably the 32, 31 time frame, which means you have to have a production line built, you have to have a design. You start backing all that up. Our goal is to choose and solidify the design and have the sales and everything in place by 2025. That's 4 years from now. So we've only got a few years to really mature some of these technologies. A lot of what you see here and a lot of what we've been talking about is indeed mature. We have to lift it from other industries and apply it to aviation. But there's a few that need some tweaking, so that's where our emphasis is right now. So that by 2025, we are confident that this aircraft will move forward.
So 4 years from now, we'll come back for the roadmap.
4 years from now, we'll probably be, talking about deals that have been made and where they'll be in service. So it's going to be a very exciting period of time.
Well, thanks very much for being with us, Amanda.
My pleasure.